Here now, Republican Congressman Matt Rosendale from Montana. He is a member of the House Natural Resources Committee. Congressman, good to see you tonight. Thank you for joining us. I want to talk about so many energy issues to discuss, but let's start with LNG, the exports out of this country. We don't have enough to pick up the slack from Russia. And while he was overseas, President Biden said part of his plan is to get Qatar, essentially, to send more shipments to the EU to wean them off of Russia. Why aren't we fast-tracking the permits, building the export terminals and the pipelines that we need so we could profit off this?
Jackie, you are spot on. We've got the potential for right now 5 billion cubic feet of liquid natural gas to be exported. All we have to do is get the permits in place for the facilities in Louisiana and Texas, and we can begin easing that pressure that we have on our Western Europe allies right now today. And this administration has just been slow to get that in place. We talk about the leasing of the federal lands for oil and gas development. This administration, the Biden administration, has not issued a new lease the entire time that they have been in office for onshore or offshore potential. And this backlog is what's causing a problem. And they say, well, we have all these leases that are currently in place. The other side of this, the coin is that while the leases are in place, they've been slow walking the permits so that the developers of those resources can actually get at the leases and turn them into producing wells.
Right.
So we're having frustration on all fronts.
Right. And some of those leases also have been drilled down to the end. What these companies need to do is get new permits on new leases of land so that they can explore and find new sources of oil. And then on the LNG side, the issue is I went on the FERC website. There are 13 project approvals for export terminals here in the United States, but no company has started construction on them. They cost roughly $8 billion to make. The companies don't want to put up that kind of capital when they see an administration that's hostile to fossil fuels.
You're spot on, Jackie. Not only the companies themselves, but many of these institutions have to go out and get support from lenders. And the lenders are getting a lot of pressure from the administration as well for what they're calling their ESG, so their environmental social governance. And they're putting a very strong hand on the lenders to get the capital out to these companies. I just met with a bunch of oil and gas companies in Montana over the last week when I was back in my district. And they told me that that is the number one problem that they are facing. Most of our development takes place on private property, so we're not stuck with some of the problems that the folks are in Louisiana and Texas, my colleagues there. But they are still having this ESG to deal with. And when we start looking at the volume of production and how it has diminished, we were at one time, just before the Biden administration took over, at about 13 million barrels a day of domestic production. And we're down to about 11 million barrels per day right now. Each of these wells has diminishing returns. They don't pump forever, and it is critically important for us to continue to open up these new areas and allow people to make those investments and produce that energy.
Right. We have to invest in the future, but they don't want to invest in fossil fuels. They want to invest in electric vehicles and alternative energy, which right now, by themselves, cannot fuel the planet. Congressman Rosendale, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.